Let's talk about assessments. And the first one is presentations. Presentations which the students don't like because they're assessed by their peers. I talked about that earlier. It's going to stay. Peer assessment works very well. It teaches something I think needs to be taught. It may be uncomfortable for you, but it's something that you must learn. There are two. One, in week 4. At the moment it's scheduled to be in week 4. And it is a short presentation. It's worth 10 marks. And this particular one concerns the requirements. The whole point is, have you understood the requirements? The one at the end of the semester, it'll be the second last week of semester, is what would normally happen in industry is the developers would make some sort of a presentation to the client to say it's ready for delivery. Here's why it's ready for delivery. Right? And usually the things that show that something is ready for delivery is that the testing is done and the test results indicate the product is complete and is stable. And the second thing that's necessary for delivery is that the product can be installed, used and supported. And that means that all of the documentation for all those things is ready and able to be done. So that's the second presentation. The logistics are you will be marked by another group, and the marking group will be marked in turn by a tutor. There's always going to be a tutor in the room, and they will both chair the meeting and they will observe the marking group and make sure that they assess your presentation fairly. And if they don't, they lose marks. I said previously, did you get the mark? Your assessors, your peer assessors mark you out of 10. And you get a mark for your assessment. Alright? Now, there is an adjustment made based on how well or badly your assessors marked you. Essentially, if they do a bad job, you get part of that mark back. But the mark you get for your presentation is multiplied by the mark you get for your assessment, which is out of 1, or out of 100% or something like that. So if you make a mess of your assessment and some tutor in the room marks your assessment as worth 80%, then the mark you get will be the mark you get for your presentation multiplied by 80%. Okay. So we encourage you to do a fair, unbiased, reasonable, informed assessment. Now, the problems in the presentation, as I said before, students don't like being assessed by their peers. You spend the whole high school being assessed by your teacher, not your other students. Now you're about to spend all your time in industry where you're not going to get assessed by your boss. You're going to be assessed by your peers, especially in IT and any other profession where your boss probably doesn't have the expertise to be able to tell you what you've done right or wrong. Yet your peers are going to do that. So peer assessment is the way it goes. The main complaint out of the assessments is usually they didn't understand us or they didn't believe us. And I get that all the time. Usually some severe protest. Well, they may not have understood you. It's not their job to understand you. Your job is to persuade them. They don't have to buy it. You have to sell it. They don't have to buy it. Now, fair enough, there are some groups who are fairly insistent that the way they thought of something is the best and the only way, and so you should have done that. Well, they get punished in their assessment of their assessment. So we look at it that way. The one thing we will not do is there will not be a substitute for a peer assessment. That is, there is no way that a tutor is going to assess your presentation. That has been suggested many times. And as soon as that happens, it wastes the value and the experience of the peer presentation. So it will remain as a peer presentation. Now, the deliverables get assessed as well. Now, the deliverables are the artifacts or the things within the software development project that a long time of experience have told us are necessary to do a good job. That is, you must understand what the requirements of the problem are before you can make a decent job of it. There's lots of information around that so many projects failed because they implemented the wrong requirements. That is, they didn't listen, or the requirements weren't available, they didn't understand. Anyway, they did the wrong thing. So you're going to have to produce some proof that you understand what the requirements are. You're also going to have to produce some sort of a design. Now, the reason being that most of the time hackers and programmers don't do much in the way of design, and eventually they get into trouble. So you're going to have to do some sort of a design up front. That is the system architecture, the database design, and the user interface design. You're also going to have to do some coding standards and coding rules. Again, because simply having those standards and rules make the software much more able to be followed, able to be understood, and able to be modified by whoever has to pick it up and maintain it. You have to do some user support documentation, which includes all of the things that we documented anyway, but also includes the user guidance, which gets implemented usually as help screens and stuff like that. And test documentation to prove that the thing works. Now, these things are deliverables as well as the software itself, and they will be assessed by your tutor. Now, they can assess them each week and give you feedback, but in the end, they will be formally assessed twice. That is in the middle of the semester and at the end of the semester. And you can negotiate with your tutor when they're going to assess them, how they're going to give feedback, and which mark is going to be the one they get. So there should be no surprises when you get your final mark. What gets marks? I did talk about this earlier, but we'll do it again. First you have to produce something, and you get marks for producing it. Now that mark is very deliberately set at 0 to 3, with 3 being a competent job. That is, whatever it is a serviceable thing. If it's requirements, it's serviceable. You don't get any marks for an excellent set of requirements. Now the reason for this is that too many student groups were spending far too long on the things at the start of the semester. So they spent a long time getting the requirements perfect, perfectly formatted, documented, and colored, the whole thing. And it wasn't helping, because they get toward the end of the semester and they run out of time. The whole thrust of agile development is you don't do more than you need to do. So it's got to be serviceable. And your tutor decides what is or isn't serviceable. They certainly will tell you if it's lacking in some fashion, so if it's missing some element that would be necessary in the development later on. So that's the mark out of 3. 3 is competent, 2 is missing a bit, 1 is probably not very useful at all, and 0 is you haven't got it at all. Then, as I said before, you get some marks for describing the method with which you produce that deliverable. This is, again, I'll repeat, it's not required to be some sort of a formal method according to a particular international standard or a IEEE standard or anything like that. It's not the full quality manual scheme. It's merely, I want to know how you did it. You went off, you decided, the group or the person decided they were going to do things in this way, they're going to document it in this way because of different reasons. So I want to know what that method was. And the last thing I need to know is the rationale for using that method. So why did you choose to do it that way? Why did you choose to set out the deliverable in this fashion? I need that rationale. And you get marks for it. It might sound a little bit unnecessary for software engineering, but this being a university, we want to have you think about what you're doing. We want you to do it being aware of what you're doing, and so forcing you to write the method and the rationale does focus your attention on why are you doing things the way you're doing them. There are also marks for running the project itself, so that's how well the team is formed, how well you plan out the work, how you get it done, and how you deal with risk management. There are a lot of things that could be assessed in terms of managing the project, but to do that shifts attention away from the engineering and the management of it, and so I didn't want to do that too much. But again, you decide how you're running the project, and I need a description of the method and the rationale for that. The last thing that gets assessed is the software itself. There was a time back in dark ages where the software wasn't assessed so much as it didn't attract marks. It simply modified the marks you already got. Well, that didn't distinguish between people who've done a really good job of something and produced a really excellent product from people who just made a mess. So there are 20 marks allocated to the product itself. That is, it has the required functionality and it has the required qualities. So something that has the functions but crashes every second time you touch the keyboard is probably not the quality. Now the quality in these days comes in particularly with usability. What's the user interface like? Aside from performance, so the three that matter usually usability, performance, and reliability.